Welcome to Mayvin podcast, where we have Julie and Kerry from the British Heart Foundation. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us.
We're pleased to be
talk
here.
About our programme that we did with you. Do you want to say something about where the need for the programme or the kind of drive to find something new, different came from? Maybe starting a platform.
We needed to look for something that was going to be a little bit more sophisticated than a skills-based programme, because all that we've just been talking about there, this is complex. This isn't, it's multidimensional. It's hard to pin down, and a lot of it is behaviour as well as competence and capability. So, we were looking for something a bit more sophisticated, and we'd done previous development programmes for our leaders before that were much more traditional by nature, wouldn't you say, Julie?
Yeah, definitely. But I think it was also reflective of where we were as an organisation. And I think, as kind of the sort of organisations became more mature over the last few years, or different in the way that we worked and different approaches, I think it started to kind of shift the needs of the leadership community as well. So, and I think we've talked about the pandemic, but that really kind of started to kind of sort of flex the muscles in our leadership community in a different way, I guess. So you started to see a different need there.
In that need for agile, in that need for a bit more connection, in that need for sort of turning up authentically.
Absolutely, those definitely, yeah.
So then that you've kind of touching on it there, but I'm curious to know. And we've talked about this a bit previously, but why Mayvin? Like when we then met and we started exploring some ideas, and it was quite a gradual process, I think I would say, of coming together and sort of thinking, actually, how could we do this? But yeah, what, I don't know, piqued your interest, I suppose, as we started the conversations?
I mean, some of the things that we wanted to do was, as Kerry's kind of already alluded to, we wanted to do something different. We weren't looking for a more traditional programme. We did want to kind of just, do something a bit more unique, a bit more innovative, a bit more sort of embedded in cultural change as well. So we weren't looking for a programme to develop managers and leaders in a particular way. We were looking to actually shift the culture of the organisation. So we wanted something a lot more deep-rooted, I think, in what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I think the approach that Mayvin came with was very much kind of using and working with the challenges of the organisation. So you actually saw a shift while you were kind of going through the programme. And also I think that it reflected what the change we were trying to make. So we were trying to create a leadership community that was comfortable with ambiguity. And the programme wasn't so set out that we knew exactly what was coming. It was kind of the programme fed the programme, if you like. So as it emerged, we started to kind of shape it and
which
respond
was challenging as well.
It was challenging, but it was really exciting as well, and it really kind of reflected, the change we were trying to create as well. So we wanted the programme to feel, or people on the programme to feel the change that we were trying to achieve, I think, and experience it. And that wasn't always comfortable for people, but it was very much an important part of the experience we wanted to create. So it was so again, we talk about authenticity as well. I think it was about the programme being authentic to what we were trying to achieve.
Yeah. It definitely had that sense of double duty, didn't it? In terms of we were really working within ambiguity as we were developing, designing the programme. Just that sense of us working in partnership with you. It was we had to really work together. We weren't coming to you with, here's a fully formed programme and this is what we think you should do.
No.
We were in the room together, working it out and working out how do we bring, the whole leadership community with us on this journey as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say that was quite scary, actually.
Yeah.
Because, when you talk to partners that are going to work with you on a leadership programme, you kind of want to see a roadmap. You want to see a kind of model. This is what you're going to go, these number of workshops and, then we'll have some action learning and then we'll have a bit of development and valuation, should I say. Got all of that going on. Actually, we developed this with you. And I think that's so back to your question, that is what attracted us to you as well, because we could see that you would co-create something with us. Yeah. And we didn't want to just, buy, if you like, an off-the-shelf mapped out model that regardless of whether it suited us, we would need to put people through. There was a comfort in that, as I say.
Yes.
But actually, we were looking for something, as Julie says, more sophisticated, more tailored to what we were looking for, and something that was going to help us to embrace, the change that we needed. So it wasn't just a leadership development program we were looking for. We were looking for support to enable the organisation to build more change resilience. So how can we manage and lead change? And I think the other thing to say about yourselves as well is the fact that whilst you came to us with that kind of experience of co-creating and doing something different, you also came from a solid base of knowledge and research and academic rigour, actually, as well as some practical, tactical experience. So we need, because we've described, the BHF being a very kind of broad-ranging organisation with lots of different disciplines and types of roles, we needed to tick all the boxes with those. We needed a partner that would work with us that had the breadth of commerciality, working with retail, working with our fundraisers, working with our marketeers, through to the solid academic background that would appeal to our academics and our researchers so we needed a partner that had that breadth and scope that could understand us as well and come with that level of rigour.
Yeah, and that's always a balance to find, because Mayvin is sometimes perceived as has quite an academic background and academic basis, and yet in partnership with organisations, that's like the kind of the grounding that underpins
the underpinning
a way of working.
Yeah,
and it's something we can always come back to, but it's not what goes into the room in the conversations, which are at that real personal and individual level.
That's right.
And that's, I mean, it's what I loved about the work that we did together in developing the programme. It was really creative.
Yes.
It felt, there were some moments which felt tricky, but we were really working with what was coming up in the groups, what was needed from the organisation, for the organisation at the time. What did BHF need now? What is it grappling with? What are leaders finding challenging? And I remember being in the room at the first big event we did, we called it the big community event, and having 120 people in the room and raising, I think it came to 6 key issues that, complex, what we call wicked problems that everyone was sort of homing in on. And the conversations around those and the energy in the room on that day was just brilliant.
It really
and then
was.
that kind of created the threads which then fed the conversations and the inquiry going through the rest of the programme. And just that was a really exciting moment.
Yeah, it was particularly exciting, I think, because, we talked about the kind of disconnect that had been surfacing. It was the first time that leadership community had been together.
Yes.
For probably about 3 years, I guess.
Yes.
In
They
person,
were hungry
anyway.
for it,
So many
weren't
people
they?
hadn't met each other before.
Yeah,
People
well,
who'd
yeah,
come
people
in
who'd come
during
in,
the
exactly.
pandemic.
Yeah. So I think the energy was very palpable in the room, partly because, you could see those connections reforming and, really, people enjoying that in-person experience as well, which I think has also, cemented our approach to kind of how we want to bring people together in person as opposed to just virtually, because that is something we're navigating as many organisations are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's the purpose of bringing people together and to do that creative but challenging work where you're grappling with some of the most difficult problems.
Yeah.
But it brings me to one of the things that I think was a thread throughout the whole programme, which is one of your values around being brave. And we've talked about that a lot, but it was a really brave programme.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both to sort of, bring people with you on the programme, but also to develop a programme around leadership, which was being sort of designed partly on as we were responsively to what was going on.
Yeah,
completely agree. I think the whole nature of the programme was brave, the way we co-created it, as I say. We went into the scary waters with not having anything laid out for us. But also then the questions. We posed challenging questions. We knew our chief exec knew there were things that we were not facing into. There were unanswered questions as an organisation that we, arguably, I didn't have the time for facing into or weren't brave enough to face into. Either way, we needed to start looking at them. And that event that you just described was a great way to kind of surface what were the things most on people's mind. We did lots of kind of mind mapping, didn't we? I remember the charts around
huge
the wall.
Sheets on the wall.
Huge sheets on the wall. And it was really telling because people nobody was assigned to their comments. It was just put it up, make sure it's up. And there was a lot in there. And it started to distill what, as you referred to,
the themes so clearly came out.
Clear themes.
It wasn't difficult to draw them out on the day. It was,
it was really good. And they became known as our wicked problems. And we love that, because it shows that we were prepared to face into the, gnarly sort of problems that people tend to not face into because they've no obvious solution to them. So it's hard to face into them. And when you do that at scale, which we did with all our senior leaders together, it becomes even more of a kind of surface wicked problem. So we loved that. And I think that then got everybody excited and wanting to then help. And that's to Julie's point about the reconnection that we needed to create. Suddenly there was a whole cohort of 130? 130 leaders who actually were being united by the shared commonality of these wicked problems and wanted to actually start to work together on the solutions. And play a part in it. And actually was a real excitement towards that, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And even in starting the programme in that way, it's interesting talking now because I think I see it in, through some different lenses again, but even starting in that way, the bravery of starting a leadership programme by saying we're going to start with the problems that you see and the challenges, your leadership challenges in the organisation. We're not starting with here's a vision of leadership that we know we can get to and here's the, an idealised sort of future that we're going to get to. It's just like, let's start with the reality of what's here. But the responsibility is with you as the leadership community across the British Heart Foundation to think about how might you move forward on this, not solve. Remember, lots of conversations. We're not trying to solve. These are wicked problems that are not easily solvable. But how do you make progress on these? And that's quite confronting, I think, as on a program like that. Of like, I'm not going to be given the answer here in any way. I'm not being promised to be developed in that sense to get exactly where I need to go, but I am being given some tools and some ways of working with these really difficult challenges a community.
Yeah, and I think that also kind of set a tone in the programme, quite a respectful but empowering tone where the leadership community that were going through the programme were kind of challenged to be accountable for those problems rather than necessarily have a fix for it or be taught how to fix it or anything. I think there was a respect that these were senior leaders that had brought their own experiences, brought their own knowledge, their own kind of attributes to it. But I think there was often that kind of mirror being held up when the wicked problems were surfacing and all the challenges that was coming through those conversations came up. It was almost like, okay, so you've put that down now. Let's mirror that back to you. What do you think we should do? How do you think we should take this? And what are you going to do about this? Yeah. So it wasn't a case of like the problems were put down and taken away for someone else to fix or to work through. I think it really kind of set that tone of empowering the people on the programme to be part of the solution, I guess, and work through that as well. So I think that certainly came through for me on the programme.
But what's interesting about that is that's where the ambiguity came in. So here's a programme that wants to, build our resilience for ambiguity, and by the very nature of the programme, we went into this not knowing what those wicked problems would be. We surfaced them as a group. We didn't have any solutions for them. So you're kind of putting something out there that becomes a problem for the organisation to resolve that we don't have any obvious, solutions to. That's not ambiguity. I don't know what is. At scale. So, kind of empowering, as Julie says, empowering people to start to think about, okay, you might not be able to fix this, but you can do something about it or something with it. or start to put us in take us in a direction. So what might that look like? What might that be? And so that kind of appreciative inquiry almost, kind of starting to ask ourselves some questions about, well, what if and what could we do? And doing that as a group started to take us onto the next path. And I think what was interesting about the programme itself is where it ended is not necessarily where we expected it to, if you see what I mean, because we needed to keep kind of changing
It was a
course.
lot of adjustments.
Lots of adjustments, changing course as we went along, because we had to respond and react to the challenges, the wicked problems that emerged and what came out of that.
And it felt like the wicked problems that we kind of lent into or we identified early on in the programme almost became the vehicle for a deeper level of understanding about the culture of the organisation and the culture of leadership for us and how that needed to shift. So, we've mentioned the word empowerment here, and that was something that came up through the programme, which wasn't one of the kind of the topics that was surfaced at the beginning, but came through those topics really, and it started to feel like the programme was starting to go a little bit deeper in terms of kind of what was beneath some of these challenges or what would sort of support us to face into those more effectively, I think. So,
and I wonder what you think about the role that the learning squads, so these were the small groups that people worked in, to really sort of get into what some of the issues, how they were facing into some of these issues, but also, their leadership practice. We often talk about practice, but, how they show up as leaders in the context of those challenges and the things that we were discussing as leadership.
Well, I think those are the... I think that was sometimes the thing that created that psychological safety, that kind of started to kind of spread, I suppose, across the community, because it started in smaller pockets, through the learning squads, and I think it then just, developed and grew. So those relationships within those groups were formed, and people were able to be quite vulnerable and be very open about the challenges they were facing, share that they had similar challenges and the support they had from their colleagues on that as well. And I think that really made a difference. So we were looking at the kind of the intervention at a kind of individual, group and organisational level as well. So we kind of addressed it through different means. So I think they really helped to develop that. And I think also the approach of kind of developing their own practice-based learning question as well was a really good way of structuring that, that puts their own personal development in the context of a bigger sort of and wider challenge, I suppose, and wider context.
Yeah, exactly. And the practice-based learning question is that an approach that we use, which asks individuals to identify, what's their learning edge for their leadership practice, and in service of what, in service of something that maybe change process is going on in their wider team or in the organisation and in the context of what's going on. So it's works at the different levels, but really puts people's development in the context of what's going on in the organisation and what they're change or what they're trying to achieve.
And I think the kind of peer-to-peer nature of those learning squads really supported that connectivity. Yes. But also that kind of, mutual challenge of each other, actually. And, just as on a large scale, we looked at, the wicked problems. They were really that little mini wicked problems that individual leaders were sharing with each other and looking to kind of support each other on. And I think that in itself, develop that or flex that muscle of, you're not just a leader, you're also a developer. You need to develop yourself, you need to help develop your peers, you need to help develop the organisation. So it kind of, it played to that. And we've had such great feedback about how the learning squads went down. Some learning squads are so connected that they meet themselves without any further facilitation. They still exist, and they still give each other lots. And I still see people coming to the office and giving each other hugs, and I think, how did they know each other? And they say, we were in
completely different directorates,
completely different directorates. That's the country, even so and they will be so. So connected. There feels such camaraderie between them. And it's nice because I know that they support each other with the everyday challenges. So it is that kind of almost situational leadership, isn't it? It's kind of, let's look at the challenges we're genuinely facing. And I think that's what's been quite unique about the programme, actually, because it's rather than, Julie and I have been in learning and development for many years, and often it's about, how much of that new skill or development have you transferred into your job? How much have you taken away from that and you're applying? You didn't have to think about that so much because it was all rooted in your job.
In people's, the reality of what was going on for people.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was going to ask, what's your sense of, a good few months on from the end, the program, official program closing? What's your sense of the shifts that you still notice, or the kind of journey that you can still feel like the leadership community is on, or like the broader, wider organisation?
So I think there's a number of things I think we can say we've noticed a shift on. I mean, we have obviously kind of done some more data collection in terms of what the shifts are, from a sort of percentage level. And so there's definitely more comfort leaning into ambiguity, which was obviously one of the main.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest leaps up in terms of
I think it was like
the metrics,
a 36% increase or something in terms of people's confidence around that, which was massive. I think also people's sense of awareness of their own development was another kind of really significant leap. So in terms of reflection on their own leadership journey and their own leadership kind of growth, I suppose, which I think continues. And I think that was one of the things that we were very conscious of with the programme, is that it wasn't a programme which had a beginning and an end and that's it. It was actually, this was an ongoing journey, and that's something that I think we have started to notice more. So the practices that we embedded in the programme are continuing. So some of the kind of activities, even down to kind of the tools and techniques that we used in some of the sessions, leaders are picking those up and using those more. The conversations that we're having, particularly around the topic around empowerment, for example, continue, and they grow and they kind of develop, and they kind of become more sophisticated and more deep in terms of the shift that we're starting to see. And I think just building on what Kerry was saying, is those connections, we're seeing a lot more of those, very visibly as well in the offices that we see, but also just across the conversations that we're noticing. I
feel like we should mention the awards that the programme has been put up for, which is really, it's congratulations to you all, and it's been brilliant to be part of it. But do you want to mention what they are and what we're on the cards for?
So we've been nominated for 2 business culture awards.
Amazing.
So one for Future Workplaces Readiness. And interesting what we just talked about.
Yes,
and best NGO, not-for-profit organisation for business culture as well. So so we'll find out kind of mid-November what the outcome of that is. But I think even just the kind of recognition of the kind of work that's gone into that is really rewarding in itself, I think. So we're really excited by that. So
I feel like we should mention again Ash Thomas, who's part of the team,
Ash.
And put all of himself into this programme.
We couldn't have done it without Ash, I would say. No. Yeah, Ash has been absolutely awesome.
And he was very much part of the team. And made it happen.
He put his heart and soul into this, I think, and it really shone through, I think. Yeah. So he's
so night of those awards. He's definitely in there.
Totally.
Oh, he'll be there.
He'll be there.
Yeah, and he'll be there. So, just thinking in closing, if there were other teams like yours, in whether it's not for profit or whether public sector, private, but they're kind of thinking, actually, how do we create that shift in our leadership team? What kind of advice, or maybe not advice, that sounds a bit heavy, but what insight would you give them from this experience over the last couple of years? What would you encourage them to question or look at, having gone through the programme or this change process that British Heart Foundation's just been through?
Well, I would say be brave.
Yeah.
Because it's as I say, it's easy to. So many different leadership development programs available on the market, and it's easy to go with what you know. But actually, I think that co-creation, having a partner that you can work with, that's going to listen to you, take in where you're at as an organisation, and help you to challenge you as well, and help you to think about what you need going forwards, and co-creating that with you is really, the important about that. And, keeping the faith, as Julie
Oh, you just stole
us.
my line. I was just
Sorry.
say that.
You say it, Julie.
Say it again. Say it again.
I'm going to get it printed on a T-shirt. And I'm owning that one. So
It's true, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely about having that curiosity and being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I think I think that's something that we embedded through the program, and it's something we challenged ourselves with as well. So
Yeah, you really did.
Yeah,
we really did.
That's a nice way of putting it, actually, Julie.
Yeah. So and keep the faith.
There you go.
Love it.
We'd have matching T-shirts made for that one.
We'll get Keep the Faith matching T-shirts, particularly if you go to any of the award ceremonies. I want the Keep the Faith T-shirts there. No nice dresses, just the Keep the Faith T-shirts.
Right. Absolutely.
Well,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you
actually?
can.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we've been on this journey together, haven't we? And we've learned through the process ourselves. We've been challenged through it. The leaders have all learned and had their own individual learning journeys through that. So, I'm just curious: did Mayvin have the similar kind of experience, and what would you have say you've learned through that, through working with us?
I mean, absolutely, yes. It was a brilliant, brilliantly different programme for us as well. I mean, we do lots around practice-based learning and using action learning approaches and using inquiry. But what was different about being able to work with you guys and British Heart Foundation overall was really being able to partner and do the co-creation together. You can't. Not every organisation is ready to do that. So it's kind of how much containment and how much ambiguity can you work with when you're partnering with an organisation. And what I really learned in that process of working with you was to work with a greater level of ambiguity, actually.
Yeah.
And that ability to be creative as we went and more responsive. And it was more challenging in some ways, but I think the programme was richer I do think the programme was richer as a result. But there was some learning about creating just enough containment.
Yes.
So that point that we talked about around getting to that halfway point in the programme, just thinking actually a bit more containment is needed.
Yes.
We need to tell the story and give a clear sense of the journey we've been on so far and where we're going to.
Yeah.
And that sense of, yes, keep the faith, but you need to give enough containment to help people keep the faith as you go through.
You do.
So it was, getting that balance right. I think there's some learning in there, but we did it together. But there was the adjustments as we went to get that right, I think. Yeah,
Great.
Good question.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think that's been a great kind of, it feels slightly like going back in time. But
does.
it's really good to go back over it and feel all positive, warm and fuzzy having talked about it.
Yeah.
But thank you for all the work you put into the programme and for the podcast today.
Oh, thank you very
Thank you
much
very
as well.
much.
Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Enjoyed it.
Good.